invited us over for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and by that time I was getting a little claustrophobic. My name is Donald F. Goold, Goold. I was born November 17th, 1929, in Buffalo, New York, and I was raised in Buffalo and went into the service in Buffalo in 1951. So in 1951, I went from Buffalo to Fort Dix, New Jersey, and went through basic training there and also leadership school, which at that time was a prerequisite to OCS. I graduated from leadership school and refused OCS, decided not to attend OCS.
Can I stop you a second?
From Fort Dix, my basic training company went to Germany, and I went to the Far East, Korea, in 1951. Landed there and went into a pup tent. The night we landed with another fella, and we could hear the artillery coming in, and it sounded like it was coming right in on us, but of course it was quite a ways away. So we landed at, I believe it was Incheon, and the next morning we were assigned our unit, and they said it was the Buffaloes, and of course me being from Buffalo, I thought, wonderful, this has something to do with the city of Buffalo, but I soon learned that it didn't, and I was just assigned to the 17th at that time, and I guess that afternoon we went up to the line to join the 17th. When I arrived at the 17th, with the 17th in Korea, I was a corporal. And I believe it was the Kumwa Valley where the 17th was at that time. And they were about ready to go back online. They had been decimated in battles just before I got there, and they were in reserve. But I spent most of my time up in the Kumwa Valley. When I was assigned to the 17th, I was with Easy Company, and at that time I was an assistant squad leader. And I remained that until I rotated in November 1952.
What is it?
The unit I was in, Easy Company, I was assigned to a squad, and I as assistant squad leader, and the squad leader at that time was Rutan, who remained as squad leader for all the time I was there. And it's my understanding that Sergeant Rutan did obtain a Bronze Star for actions in Korea. This happened, I believe, after I left. But it could have been Pork Chop Hill.
Now, Donald, can you tell us something about, do you know the places you were at? Do you, usually as a private or a corporal, you don't really know where you are, but do you know any of the names of the places or any of the battles you were engaged in? Well, let me stop this a second.
When I arrived in Korea, I eventually had the impression that it was very hilly, lots of rice paddies, very unforgiving land. Even the ride up to the front in a 2.5 were on roads that I still shudder at the thought of going along the edge of some of these mountains in these trucks. And I spent most of my time up on the hill, up top of the hill, in bunkers, overlooking the Cooma Valley, and watching the spotter planes and later the P-51s and other airplanes dropping bombs on the spots the spotter planes designated. And I always gave those little airplanes, spotter planes, a lot of credit for flying into the face of rifle fire or what have you. They'd fly low to get their identifiers in the spot they wanted to. And then the other planes would come over after that and drop napalm into the bunkers or spots of the enemy. And at night, why, they would light up the valley with flares so you could see if any activity was happening out in the valley. We also went out on outposts. Quite often we'd go out, about 3-4 soldiers. We would go out with commo wire out there so we could communicate. In fact, we had to have wire communication. We didn't have the radios we have now. But we'd go out on listening posts, and we had the new rifles that you could see in the dark, so to speak, any movement just so far away. And that became quite routine. At the outpost, we went out there maybe once every 3 weeks at night and set up more or less to observe if there's any activity coming at us at night. And we weren't allowed to smoke or any kind of lights. The smoke from a cigarette could give us away, as we knew that the North Koreans had patrols and outposts also. So while I was there, we heard of one, I believe from the 17th. It was out on the outpost, and they were smoking. And the next morning, they couldn't make communication. We couldn't make communication with the outpost. So the command post asked this unit to go over from another outpost to check on them. When they went over there, they found them all dead. Their boots missing, their jewelry missing, and they figured they were smoking. There were American cigarette butts there, and they all died because they smoked. I'll never forget that. That made me more aware that you better stick by the rules or you can get killed. And then we had patrols. We would go out at night and see if we could hear anything, see anything, any activity. Thankfully, while I was there, we never had any contact with the enemy. But we did go on the patrols, and quite regularly we had a point man leading the patrol for more recon, listening and sighting, see if he could see anything before the main unit of the patrol came up. And he was in charge. If he raised his arm, everybody stopped and crouched down if he did. But thankfully, we never had any contact with the enemy. So goes the patrols. Then, my contact with the enemy was just before I rotated, and that is indelible in my mind. Going up this hill and being mortared and artillery and seeing bodies, just torsos just laying there, bodies blown apart, arms and legs gone, heads gone. And I still have indelible memory of these incidents. Yeah, I get
Go ahead, Don.
when we were on the line, we at night we would have flares over the valley so we could observe any activity. Sometimes the North Korean planes would come over with loudspeakers, a woman uh, addressing us, talking about our girlfriends back home, our wives back home, and why we should give up and the war would be ended, and they would take good care of us as a prisoner. And they'd play American music to get our attention, and that went on quite regularly. Uh, she would try to encourage us to, in any way she could, to coerce us into stopping, quitting the war, or coming across north into their territory, and we would be welcomed and taken very good care of as prisoners.
Tell us how that made you feel, Don.
Well, to hear that, it just revolted me. Of course, here I'm an American soldier trying to defend what I'm over there for, the American people, our country, and it revolted me to have this kind of activity addressed to us. I just can't describe it, but I and my friends in the unit never subscribed to it. We hated it, and I know of no one that cooperated in any way with the enemy as a result of those conversations he was directing at us.
Go ahead, Don.
My platoon leader, Rutan, he was a very dedicated soldier and leader.
Well, let me stop you a moment. Now, you said before that. Okay.
My squad leader, Rutan, he was uh, an excellent leader. He commanded his men well. He was very fair with everybody in the squad. And they just respected him and backed him up. Whatever he wanted to do, we went along with. And the other members of my squad were pretty much the same. They all wanted to do their duty to the best of their ability, and they were led well. We had good platoon leaders, lieutenants. For the most part, they were excellent. There were a couple at ROTC graduates that became a lieutenant and came over there right away after that kind of thought they knew it all. And some of the guys in the squads, they knew better than that. But we went along with it because they were lieutenants.
How about telling us a little bit about the Koreans? Did you have any contact with the Koreans in your unit?
Yes, we had what we called ROCs, Republic of Korea soldiers, assigned to our unit as interpreters. If we captured any enemy, they acted as interpreters. They were, again, very dedicated and most helpful to us new guys coming over because they knew the country and they knew the North Koreans. They knew what to expect, and they tried to pass that on to us, and they were excellent in that respect. We had the utmost respect for them.
Go ahead, Don.
Just before I rotated, we were in a holding action, so to speak. The North Koreans, they had tried to take a hill away from us, and we would go back up the hill and knock them off of it, and went back and forth that way. And it was just a holding action. They were trying to get the grounds they wanted in case a truce was signed, and we tried to hold the ground we wanted in case a truce was signed. So we were shot up pretty badly at one point there, and we went back into reserve. And that's when I was assigned down to Kojido and some other members of the 17th for guarding prisoners.
Can you describe Kojido for us? I know it was an island.
Kojido was an island that was designated as a holding point for prisoners taken, whether Chinese or North Koreans. So we were down there guarding the prisoners. They had work details. We'd go out and control the work details. And I was only there about a day in November and was out on my duty of guarding the prisoners on a work detail, and I was relieved with the understanding that I was going to be rotated a little early, try to get me home in time for Christmas, which I was relieved immediately from duty and left the next day.
So tell us a little bit about that.
So my entire time in Korea, there were talks of truce. We knew there were talks going on, and nothing happened while I was there. There's no ceasefire, anything like that, till I believe it was July '53 after I left. But the feeling of everybody, of course, was let's hope they sign it and get us out of here. But when I left Korea, that was still going on, and everybody was still praying for the truce talks to succeed, to let all the Americans come home. Unfortunately, there was a lot of fighting to be done yet, preceding the truce. While in Korea, I was assigned a rifle, M1 rifle, but as time was extended over there, I fell in love with the M1 carbine. It was light, easier to carry, and 700 rounds a minute. And that was more suitable for that type of fighting that we were in over there. Most of it was close fighting. It wasn't distance. And the M1 carbine, fully automatic, or the M2 carbine was fully automatic. The M1 was single. You had to pull a trigger every time you wanted a shot. But the M2 carbine was a favored weapon there for the reasons that I mentioned, the close fighting.
Now, that was an officer's weapon. How did you acquire an M2 carbine?
I obtained an M2 carbine because we requested them. And it was realized that this was a better weapon for that type of fighting, so they did assign M2 carbines to us. And I slept with it. I slept with it because we had heard stories about at night the Chinese had tried to creep up into the bunkers, and usually in the bunkers we had 3 or 4 soldiers, and one would be on guard at all times. Sometimes they fell asleep, and we were aware of that, and we'd kind of watch each other so we didn't fall asleep. Whoever was supposed to be on duty didn't fall asleep. But we had heard where one did fall asleep, and they found their throats slit in the bunker. Every one of them were killed while they were sleeping. So at that time I had trouble sleeping because I was half awake and half asleep, and I always had the M2 carbine close to me, loaded and ready to go.